Ben Fagan here with another episode of Career Catch the Podcast, and on this episode, I'm joined by one of my former teammates and my original throwing partner, Ryan Donovan. Ryan is now the account manager for service solutions at Philips Healthcare, and on this episode, we sit down to talk about how to transition your skills from one area of your life to another, how to find your competitive edge, and the importance of putting in the work now for what you want to do later. It's an awesome conversation. Let's get to it. Well, this is a extremely special episode for me because I'm sitting down with my original throwing partner from college ball. And if you play baseball, if you know anything about that bond, it's an unbreakable bond. And I just can't thank you enough, Ryan Donovan, for being here. So Ryan Donovan, welcome to the show.
Let me say, Ben, it's an honor, and it was an honor being your throwing partner. You know, I think I was a senior, you were a freshman. There was no one that got me hyped up for a game more than Ben Fagan. So we got locked in before every single game, and, we will always have that special bond as throwing partners. So,
Absolutely. Couldn't say it better myself. But we're not here to talk about baseball. We're here to talk about other aspects of life. So can you kind of catch us up, give us a little context? What do you do currently on a day-to-day? And then we'll jump back into how you kind of got to that point.
Yeah, so currently I work for a company called Philips Healthcare. It's one of the largest healthcare companies in the world. Specifically, Philips focuses on imaging devices, as well as we've gotten into the space of virtual healthcare. So doing telehealth, as well as data analytics and software. Typically when you look at this space that I'm in, the companies are Philips, General Electric, GE, and Siemens. So kind of the big three, as people like to say. So that's what I'm currently doing today.
Very cool. So growing up, was this something, I know you always had that business knack to you, that gravitating always towards business. Was this an area of business that you thought you would get in or wanted to get in, either coming out of school or growing up?
Not at all. And, I had no idea I was going to do this. I had no idea that I was going to get on this path and getting into medical, sales and getting into medical devices. I had no experience in this whatsoever. So it's kind of interesting, the path that you go down. But one thing that I always had was I had a knack for relationship building. I liked connecting with people. I liked meeting people. And I liked presenting, and I'm an outgoing person. So although I might not have aspired to, do something in the medical device field, I feel like in certain jobs you could take an aspect of life or something that you're passionate about and put that in, and that's really what gets your juices flowing.
And can you kind of give an example of how you've done that? Because I think that's a great point, and a really important point too is this concept of you taking skills from other areas of your life, whether it's from sports, whether it's from school, whether it's from hobbies that you have, and applying it to things that you can do for a living. So going off with the relationship building aspect of it, how do you use that in the things that you do now to be effective at what you do?
Right. So coming out of college, obviously played baseball, and I really had no idea what I wanted to do with my life at all. So, something that my dad brought up to me was, what about getting into sales? And he was in sales. And when you break down what sales is, a big component is, networking and relationship building. Being an athlete, when you're on a team, as you're dealing with people from all different personalities. Your coach has a different personality. And getting along and being a good teammate is very similar to doing something in sales. You're going to meet all different types of people, and the fact that you have a skill in being a relationship builder is something that translates really well into sales, because you're out meeting with customers and working with people all day long. So, that was something that I felt like I could relate to. And when I got into sales, that was something that really helped me early on, was having the ability to, relate to different types of people, not being afraid to get out there, as well as from sports, the competitive aspect. You're trying to sell something, you're trying to hit numbers, you're trying to hit goals, and that really translated well. So I feel like there was a lot of crossover, and that's what kind of got me into, kind of focusing on sales and doing really well, and kind of taking me down the path I'm on today. But I think that's a key point, Ben, that you brought up, is that you know you might not be, my first job, I worked for ADP, which is a payroll company. I wasn't growing up 8 or 9 years old thinking, man, I want to work for a payroll company, right? But if you could find something that translates to an opportunity, whether it's you're really passionate about numbers, you're really passionate about, relationship building, you're really passionate about whatever it is, and taking an aspect of that and putting it into a real life job, that's something that you can get behind and become a successful person.
No, I want to touch on that you just mentioned. There is you started at ADP, like you said, 9, 10 years old. That wasn't the dream. How do you, when you get to that point, how do you take advantage of that stepping stone job, or that maybe it's the first job out of college, or the job where it's not your forever job? How do you go and not just show up and just go through the motions and put yourself in a position to succeed based off of that opportunity?
Well, that's a great point that you bring up. And even with me, right, when coming out of college, my aspiration was to play pro baseball. And there were some teams that I was in touch with, and I thought maybe there was a shot to get drafted. If not drafted, maybe try and get signed by someone. And that was really like the goal for me. At the same time, it was my first week working for ADP, and I really wasn't engaged at all. I wasn't really caring. I was on my phone. I was thinking about baseball. And my boss always joked at me and said, you almost got fired on your first week. And after the draft happened, and after that week, and, I didn't end up getting signed or drafted, had some chances to play independent baseball, and I decided to say no and just kind of jump into a real life job. I felt like I kind of had a decision, right? And being an athlete, it takes passion every day to go out there and hit off the tee, get in the cage, be there for practice. If you're not dedicated and working towards that goal, you're not going to be a good player. So I thought to myself, this is kind of the crossroads. What am I going to do here? And I was able to take those kind of skills that I had and translate it over to this job and find something that you're passionate about, whether it's, meeting people, building a network, the competitive drive of hitting your numbers. And I was able to kind of do that. And when I was at ADP, I actually finished as the rookie of the year my first year. And like I said, my boss would joke around with me and said, dude, you almost got fired on your first week. Mm-hmm. So I think it comes down to being able to, take an aspect of something that you're passionate about. It might not be perfectly, but if you have an opportunity with an early job to make money, be successful, build up your resume, take that aspect of what that is and apply that every single day. And that's where I think you could do really well.
Now, was that a difficult transition for you, translating? Because I agree 100%, is you learn and you have that competitive nature, those competitive juices, and you, from playing ball, from being an athlete, was that a difficult transition to apply that same competitiveness to something that wasn't ball, just because you grow up every single day playing, and having this goal of playing professionally, ultimately reaching the big leagues? And then it's time to take that same energy, which is beneficial, and put it into another realm. Was that transition difficult for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first off, I had no idea about, what the payroll background of that first job, right? But like you said, it's really different because baseball, you're something you're super passionate about. You're doing it every single day. It's your dream. Now you have to become competitive and passionate about something that, really wasn't your dream. But I think there's that realization moment, right? Whereas, I'm an adult now, I want to try to make money. I will have other aspirations and goals that I want to do. And how do I get there? And that's kind of the conversation you have to have with yourself. But it's a really good point of, that competitive drive. If you really have a competitive drive and, you're trying to beat that other team, well, now you're trying to beat your number, or you're trying to hit this goal, and it kind of translates over. So that's where I think that, it was definitely a transition. But once you dedicate yourself, I feel like it's something that's easy to do.
So what are you driven by now?
I would say I'm driven by achieving goals, right? Like you set a goal out for yourself to be an all-conference player. You set a goal out for yourself to be, lead the nation in sales or go over your number by 100%. And that's kind of what drives me, as well as I like helping people. So something that is interesting about the medical field is when you're, selling and when you're working with customers, at the end of the day, you're providing them with something that's going to help someone, whether it's a sick person who needs an MRI scan, or, you're selling some sort of device that provides surgery on people and is going to help, fix something that's wrong with them. So, there's an aspect of changing lives as well, which drives you to be, to show up every day and give it all you got, basically.
I love that. Ryan Donovan, the king of drive. So when it comes to sales, I think there's a couple points that I want to touch on with sales specifically. Is there's so much that is out of your control, and when you do have those goals, where it's I want to be a top in the nation or increase my sales by 100%, whatever it is, there are some aspects that I would imagine are out of your control. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but is how do you go about handling and deciphering the things that are in your control, out of your control, and still being driven to meet those goals, meet those numbers?
Yeah, I mean, sales is really hard. I mean, it's a very difficult job. When I was at my first job, ADP, for example, I would show up to a business park, and I would be going door to door, knocking on people's doors and saying, hey, who do you guys use for your payroll? And, that's something that a lot of people won't do. It's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good, right? If you call someone and they hang up, a lot of the times I will call right back. Hey, I lost you. That's something that is uncomfortable as well. You're dealing with things that are uncomfortable to a lot of people. But the key in sales is, I feel like, developing your style. Everyone's going to have a style. And when you break down what sales is, you need to discover a need, or someone has a need, and you're providing that solution. And what I kind of stick to in the way I do it is 4 key points. So the first one is to relate. You have to find a way to relate to someone, right? If I'm talking to Ben Fagan and I'm trying to relate to him, maybe that topic is college baseball. We establish some sort of relationship and you're building trust. The second thing is to develop. You want to develop whatever that need is that person potentially has. So you're talking to them and you're asking open-ended questions. You're kind of discovering what their pain points are per se. The third key point is to advocate. So instead of being a used car salesman where it's like, Ben, you need to buy this. You need to buy this. If you do those first 2 steps properly, to the relate and the develop, you've built some trust with this customer or person that you're trying to sell. So at this point, they should trust you. And now you're being an advocate for whatever that problem is. Ben, this is really going to help your business and help you, and here's why, right? And then the last step is the support. So after the fact that you've sold someone, you want to make sure that you support them, because you have no idea what that person could open up for you, whether it's getting you into a new account, maybe they open another business, maybe they come back as a repeat customer. That's what, it's all about. So I think if you kind of figure out what your style is, as well as you are not afraid to put yourself in uncomfortable positions, you're going to be a good salesperson.
I think you answered a question that came up earlier. Is I talked with this about Rigo on a previous episode, who's in sales with real estate, and talking to him about how you go about selling in not a sleazy way, because I think sales gets that bad rep in many aspects. And I think you hit on it, or a big portion of it is selling, within your voice and within your style. And is there anything that you would add to that? And then also, how did you come across or, arrive upon your voice and your style within the sales realm?
What I say to that question is, you need to get your reps in, right? Even if you're a baseball player and you're in the cage and you're hitting 1,000 balls every single day, you're going to tweak your swing and try to do different things. You start fouling off balls and, hey, maybe I need to get more out in front of it. Same thing with sales. My first job, a transactional sales job, kind of like an entry-level sales job, I was doing thousands of, calls over the phone, in person, and through success and failure, you realize what is that kind of sweet spot, right? And how you develop your own style and kind of things that you need to do. And a lot of the times, you're thinking of things outside of the box. It's not like, hey, this is how you sell A, B, C. And a lot of companies that you get into, kind of corporate level companies will, pitch you that stuff. But at the end of the day, take things that you might learn, take things that what your company's trying to teach you, something you experienced in real life, and you kind of blend it all together, and you can kind of find your rhythm and what kind of style works for you. And I think that just takes time with activity. Just like you get into the cage or look at your swing on video, get out there, do it. Don't be afraid to jump right in instead of waiting back and I'm going to take my time. No, just jump right in and do it. And when you put in that activity, you're going to find out what works for you and what your style is.
Got to get the dry hacks in.
Exactly.
All sales, get those reps in. I love it. So as we're headed towards the end of this wonderful conversation here, what is next? What is in the future for Ryan Donovan here? What are we working towards?
So one thing is, once you get in your career, you really don't know what's going to happen, right? The goal is to find a company that is a good culture fit, that there's that upward mobility where you could try to, keep on climbing the ranks or become a manager one day. And my kind of goals, I would say, is just to keep on being successful in my role, keep on doing well, maybe become some sort of manager or kind of move up the line, but as well as, be able to do well enough in my job where maybe I can do something later on in my life where, maybe it's opening up a baseball facility or starting my own business or doing something along those lines. But, it's key to stay open-minded. It's really hard to, obviously, maybe my dream job and maybe your dream job would be to become a general manager of a sports team or, to do something in sports or whatnot. But stuff like that is, as we know, extremely hard to come across. So it helps keeping an open mind. You might get a job where you thought in a million years, I never thought I would do this. After when I worked for ADP, I worked for a robotic surgery company. I was actually in the operating room in hospitals in New York City, working with surgeons where they're being operated on by a robot. And I never thought in a million years that I would be doing that. But that's just kind of what my path took me down. So I think it helps staying open-minded and, having an open mind when it comes to what can come in the future.
Beautiful. Before we cash out here, one more hard-hitting question. Where are your Buffalo Bills finishing this NFL season?
Well, as you could say, I got my guy Josh Allen right there. And I would say that, we're going to make a run at the Super Bowl. If we could get by Kansas City, I think that we have a good chance. And I would love a shot at Tom Brady. He's beaten us so many times. I've watched so many games where Tom Brady has just dominated the Bills. I want the Bucs back in it and give us a shot at Tom Brady. And I think Josh Allen can get it done.
Give us a shot. Trust in Josh Allen. There it is. So, Ryan, it is that time of show where we are cashing out and you're leaving the folks at home with a little extra money for the road with your best tip, biggest piece of advice. So what do you have for us today?
I would say, Ben, after a lot of thought, my biggest piece of advice to anyone, coming out of college is two-part. Do not be afraid to get in an uncomfortable situation, as well as do not be afraid to grind. And I say this because, like I mentioned earlier, my first job, I was knocking on doors. I was making cold calls. I was, sending cold emails, thousands of phone calls. It was a hard job and it was uncomfortable at times. I really had no experience. It wasn't the perfect situation. I was an athlete. I had, no idea, how to sell stuff or what I was doing. But by doing that and, dedicating yourself, that opened up a door for my next job, which was another step up. Like I mentioned, I was working for a robotic surgery company in, New York City in the operating room with people having operations done. I had to learn about engineering. I had to learn about clinical procedures. zero background in any of that. I was grinding, studying for tests, working, really hard at trying to pass my certifications, and then learn how to be in the operating room. Uncomfortable situation. But by doing that well, I opened up a door for this opportunity, which is another step up. So that's kind of the way it works in the real world. Things might not be perfect, but if you're not afraid to put yourself in an uncomfortable position and you're not afraid to grind, you're going to be able to find a path to be successful.
I love it. I just want to, we'll give you a standing ovation. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming on today. You shared a lot of wisdom, and I know people are going to, get great benefit from this. So thanks so much.